Backward compatibility on PS5, what is true and what is false. There's been a lot of talk lately. I wanted to make this video to really look at what Sony themselves has said on this subject, and hopefully by the end of this video, we're gonna have a bit more understanding around the current situation regarding backward compatibility for PS5. And to answer the question right away, yes, Sony PlayStation 5 will be backward compatible with PS4. It has been confirmed by Sony, but it comes with a but, and in this video I'm gonna try my best to explain why things are a bit more complicated than what you may think. So I've been following the leaks and the rumors very closely for over a year now. I started digging into the hardware side around both PS5 and Xbox Scarlett around the time leaks around AMD Navi started to pop up on the interwebs, and as with any new console generation or any tech device for that matter, it usually starts with small minor leaks, and as time goes on and we're getting closer and closer to a release date, more interesting, meaningful information starts coming out, and that is usually a good indication that we're getting closer to a final product. With all that said, there has been a lot of talk around whether PS5 would get backward compatibility or not, and although Sony has been sharing lots of information regarding their upcoming console, they have been quite vague when it comes to backward compatibility. So I wanted to look at what Sony has said up to this point regarding this, and possibly and hopefully answering some of your questions. There's a lot of information out there, and it's hard to know what sources to trust and which one to ignore. I should also add that I am not an expert here by any means. I just happen to be a sweaty nerd excited for what's on the horizon. And with that said, I want to start shedding a bit of light on this article on a site called Famitsu, who's actually been in touch with Sony discussing their plans regarding PS5. This article is originally written in Japanese, I think, but with some magic from Google Translate you can get a pretty good understanding what they were talking about in this interview. And again, if we use Google Translate, bear with me. Sony makes it clear that the developer team behind PS5 is still working to achieve full backward compatibility with PS4, but it still remains to be seen if they will succeed in supporting 100% of the game offerings. And if we read between the lines, they are still verifying if they can guarantee full compatibility, so they are still not 100% sure. So right now it seems like we're looking at a situation as with Xbox 360 games on Xbox One, for example, where a handful of 360 games can be played on the Xbox One, but only certain games that Microsoft themselves decided to put some effort into. And so this means that Sony could port popular PS4 games to PS5 and maybe skip less popular titles, for example. And this is something that Sony still tries to figure out right now. Why is things so complicated, you may ask? We talked about before how PS4 and PS5 are based on the same x86 architecture, which means that coding and developing games should already be written in the same kind of language, coding language so to speak, and theoretically making porting games a piece of cake. Well, it turns out it is a little bit more complicated. To understand everything, we need to dive inside the PS4 console for a moment. The PS4 is equipped with a kernel processor part based on AMD's Jaguar architecture. The graphics comes from AMD Sea Island generation graphics core next, or also known as GCN 2.0. PS5 on the other hand takes the step to the Zen 2 processor architecture and a graphics selection based on Navi with the architecture Radeon DNA or RDNA. Now, since the fundamental technology of the two gaming consoles come from the same company, it is easy to assume that the compatibility between the two should be a simple story. But as we can witness from this interview here, it tells us that Sony isn't guaranteeing full backward compatibility, and they are not giving us a 100% certainty here. Sony makes it clear that the developer team behind PS5 is still working to achieve full backward compatibility with PS4, but it still remains to be seen if they will succeed in supporting 100% of the game offerings. The company's representative tells us that the engineers are doing their best to achieve the goal, and they are currently still evaluating the situation. Now, the majority of the instructions and the features of the Jaguar architecture and the GCN 2.0 are supported in the Zen 2 or the RDNA respectively, but with a few differences which which may be what makes Sony unable to promise full backward compatibility. AMD has actually removed and added instructions over the years between the Jaguar and the Zen 2 architecture, and they have been using different calculation models, and all in all this type of stuff can cause concerns in game titles that are simply hard-coded against these differences. I know it's a bit complicated guys, but this is how it is. Now the interview does not clarify whether the conversation only refers to backward compatibility between PS4 and PS5 or whether, you know, older consoles are also involved in this issue. PS3 for example is using a cell processor, and we know that the cell processor is an extremely complex platform to achieve full compatibility with. So for older games such as PS3 and PS2 games, we might just have to rely on PS Now for example, which is Sony's streaming service. But yeah, with that all being said, to answer the question again, will Sony give us backward compatibility? Yes, they will, but right now we aren't sure if this only applies to specific games and accessories or if Sony might be able to guarantee compatibility and support for every game being made for PS4, maybe PS3, maybe PS2, although it seems unlikely that they will support much older platforms, but guaranteeing PS4 support would be something that I myself would like to see at least. Anyway, as always, I'm very interested in hearing your thoughts on this. I'm obviously going to keep you guys up to date on this. In case you're not fully up to date with PS5 and all the latest news, I recommend having a look down in the description box where you can find earlier videos I made revealing pretty much everything you need to know about the next gen PS5. But yeah, for more awesome content, watch either of these two videos for more PS5 related content. Until next time guys, you have an awesome day.